Welcome to another video with Finish Line TC Services. I have my partner here, Jay, and we have a very, very special guest. As you guys know, the last video that we did, we brought Suzanne Sharkey on, and we asked her about a scenario or a situation that she was going through where she wasn't properly protected. Now, that made us think we wanted to bring a rock star onto this podcast, and as someone that is very familiar with due diligence. And she is in Subto. Her name is Mel Palmer. So let's bring Melissa on. Hi, Melissa. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
Good. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Jay. Doing well.
How are you?
All right. Awesome. So, Melissa, I just introduced you. I told everybody about a situation that we spoke to Suzanne Sharkey about. So she was doing a deal and she wasn't protected as far as the paperwork goes. And so, I explained to everybody that you teach a lot of the community members about due diligence. So before we get into that, can you tell us about yourself prior to Subto, prior to real estate, what your background was?
Yeah. So I'm a farm kid from Wisconsin. I joined the Air Force in 2007. I saw a lot of friends and family going and getting a ton of student loans. I saw at my last 2 years of high school, I went to the technical college. And for me, I was like, oh, I can get free school and I can travel the world. So I joined the Air Force in 2007. And because I was in the military, I had VA loan opportunities. And so I bought my first house in 2009 at the bottom of the market in Vegas and started investing early, but I certainly didn't have an investor mindset. I bought primaries. They were primaries. I didn't want to, I wasn't putting work in the house to make it worth more. I was putting work in the house to like it more, which is fine. And that was the stage. And so I continued in the Air Force active duty until 2019. And while I was in the Air Force, I started as an intelligence analyst, and then I switched careers in 2012 to be a special agent. So I did all of our federal investigations for the Air Force, for fraud, sex crimes, drug crimes. And then I went to Monterey to learn Mandarin at the Defense Language Institute and ended my career doing export enforcement in Hong Kong. So I looked at subsidiary companies, front companies, and circumvention of U.S. trade law to be able to get dual use products. Very jargon heavy, but in that time, I also continued using my VA loan, investing in real estate, and I graduated to a house hacker mindset from primary purchaser to investor in 2016. I bought my first investment property in Hawaii, fixed it, held it, rented it out. And so that's pre-Subto. I joined Subto in January 2022. And I had already had both my house, my rental in Hawaii. I'm actually at one of my my only short-term rental here in Big Bear, California, and my primary property in Monterey, California. And so did plenty of investing prior to Subto, couple of fix and holds, couple of sales, and a couple of different exit strategies. So that's
wow. So number one, you've done a lot in real estate. You started, a while back, right? And then you have a lot of an extensive background on digging into stuff, investigating and things like that. So then you joined Subto, right? And you saw that there was a need, right? Is that how what you do now came about? Or let's start there. What do you do now in the community?
Sure. So I created a due diligence service in which I vet the deal, the person, the information. I saw everybody saying, hey, vet the deal and you'll be fine. You can't invest in the person. And then other people say invest in the jockey, not the horse. And I realized that both of these schools of thought were completely wrong because they're only a piece of the puzzle. And I got ripped off. And that's why I started the service. So I thought, oh, I gave up my gun and my badge. I'm done being an investigator. I'm done being a cop. And I started helping other people as a transaction coordinator, and I was doing consulting. And so I was seeing everything that was going wrong on other people's deals. And then I had my own deals go wrong, and I vetted the deal. And these were OGs and people that are leaders. And so I was told, because I had money, because I made a lot of money in the real estate that I bought and sold and held, that I could leverage my money with asset-backed returns and all of these like tropes that are true, but 5 layers deep, they're true. At the top layer, they're just a saying, and most people stop at the saying, and most people are not students. Most people are not diligent, and I won't even say most people aren't honest, but most people have like baseline intentions of doing the bare minimum, and that's just reality. So I learned the hard way that investing in the deal, investing in the person is absolute trash. And I decided to get my commercial license to be able to pull backgrounds. And then I developed a service that really matches a lot of the investigative techniques that I used. But when I was in law enforcement, I enjoyed it because I was good at it, but I hated that something bad already happened. And so my favorite part about this is I can be preventative. I can apply those exact same skills to look at things from the prevention angle instead of the recovery and loss angle. And so originally, coming from a place of loss, I had to do all of the, backtracking and what went wrong, where, why, how, and what can I do to protect myself in the future. And then instead of helping other people untangle the yarn ball of lies and missteps and mistakes, I was like, that's such an ugly game. And I played that game long enough. And there's never really a good answer. Even if you find out what happened, it doesn't mean you get your money back. It doesn't mean you get your time back. And so I'm now in the business of helping people be risk aware and help them mitigate their risk. And so I created this due diligence service to help people avoid what is inevitable when it comes to real estate investing and just investing in general.
Yeah, and I think that that service that you offer is amazing. Jay and I, we handle Gator PML deals, and the amount of people that don't do their due diligence is crazy. Now, Jay, I know you handle a lot more. You've done a lot more Gator PML deals. About how many of those would you say that people don't do their due diligence? So, like, let's say out of every 10.
Probably 6 out of 10. They don't do enough due diligence.
Yeah.
They don't even know to look. They look at the ARV. They don't look at the current value of the property, which is a huge mistake. You should always look at current value, because if a person doesn't do anything, can you get your money back? If they take your money and they don't rehab the property, they just steal your money, can you get your money back from the property? The answer most times is no.
Right.
The other thing we found with due diligence, there's a few due diligence issues too, though, that nobody talks about because nobody really has seen it or thought about it. Like, one thing is, if they have a first position lien, you need to see the lien documents, because there's a clause that hard money lenders are putting in there that you can come back and get more money from them, and it just gets added to the lien. They don't file a new lien. So there's no title's not going to know how much you owe, none of that. So like, you should always contact the first lien position and ask them, hey, what is your payoff? How much are you totally owed? Don't just take the word for it or what you find on the title commitment. But people don't know that. And it's kind of scary that people don't know that, but it's not talked about, right, Melissa? Like, nobody talks about all the due diligence you should do. And I know you do. You and I have talked a lot, so I know you do. But I'm saying that by and large, the community doesn't talk.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, for the longest time, and you can go back through the group like right now, you search due diligence, nothing of value. All it is people that are offering deals, and the word is do your due diligence. Nobody knows what that means, and nobody talks about what it means. And so I just started cracking that egg. I was like, let's go. Like, here's all I get a lot of flack for saying that I'm like trying to scare people. I'm like, no, I'm trying to make you take off your rose-colored lenses, because losses occur in investing, and instead of getting blindsided by them and upset, if you plug those holes before it sinks your ship, that'd probably be the best course of action.
Now, Melissa, you don't underwrite the deal, do you? Or you do?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Here's what I found out. Everybody loves the service in theory. In practice, people are too haphazard. They want to close on their deal in 3 days. I have a 2-week minimum. I'm not gonna take more time, or less time rather, to look at it, because if they want to get what I'm selling, that's the amount of time I need to make sure that clients that are already in queue are taken care of, that I have just a tiny ounce of work-life balance, which I don't, but, so in theory, my service is vetting the deal, the person, and the information. There's like 6 elements of the deal that I look at. Napkin underwriting is one of 6 elements. The person, we look at another 6 elements: their background, education, experience, assets, income, and credit. So then I do interviews. This is the information. I do interviews, I do document collection, I do contract reviews, and then I do all the liens, judgments, bankruptcies. I have a database that I check for, the blacklisted borrowers, for people that have been reported to me, and all sorts of, information that I maintain to be able to reference and check. And then I talk to references. So it's the interviews of the person, it's the statements of explanation. I do all this document collection and preparation so that if someone chooses to loan, they have a case file essentially for if things go wrong, they're actually protected, because you are only the same way I say due diligence is one of 6 parts of actually vetting the deal. Your final closing documents and paperwork is like one of, 7 parts you would want for a criminal investigation. And so if you want to be able to take somebody to court and hold up, agreements in a court of law and win, you need more than closing docs. And so I help them establish that baseline. So, hey, if we're doing this, you've got your paperwork in order, and established the rules of engagement for if things go wrong, at least you can do something, because that's the thing too, is so many people are in positions where they can't do anything. Some are so simple, right? Like be on a contract, right? And Suzanne has shared her story as an excellent, warning to others that such simple stuff will mess you up. But it's not just the simple stuff. That is the baseline. And so anyway, my service does do some underwriting, but what I tell people is I have 10 questions to understand what angle we should underwrite this from. And I'm not going to do that. If you heard, I've already got a really thorough investigation that I'm doing in two weeks. So to truly underwrite, I call it napkin underwriting. And honestly, it's more than what most people do baseline. But for me to want to call it underwriting, I'm like, you guys need to think so much deeper than this napkin, debt service, management, that's basic. And beyond that, people can underwrite before they spend their time bringing a deal to me, because it's not an underwriting service. It is a full-fledged due diligence service. And underwriting is a minute part of one section. So yeah, long answer, but I do underwriting.
And I'm glad that you let everyone know that you need minimum 2 weeks, because Jay, how many times do you get deals someone needs money and the lender is like, hey, I got this deal that came up, and you're like, yeah, when do they need the funds by?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean that happens every day. And what's funny is something that Melissa touched on is we say to do our part, we need 72 hours at a minimum to be able to draft documents and make sure things are getting done correctly from a document perspective. But I start to ask, like, what due diligence have you done? Like, and of course, like I said, Zillow shows it's worth this and they owe this. And I'm like, that's not good. And we explain it to them, and I make sure it's in writing that because the other thing I don't like is, and this happens in our area, is people get screwed. Somebody doesn't pay the bill. Somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do. The first thing they say is, well, I had a top tier TC do it and blah, blah. It's like, that's not a TC's job. Our job is to make sure you have all the paperwork. It's correct for you to do what you need to do. Yeah. And it's so funny because they're like, well, what are you going to do after close? Nothing. Like, we're done at closing. I help my clients if they need help. I'll help them find a lawyer to foreclose, or I'll make sure they have a second copy of the documents, because it's very surprising how many of our clients will like delete the email that had their documents in it. It's so great. Or they can't find it, so they don't file it. They don't file it in their email. They don't download it and file it on their system. I'm like, wow, like, okay. So we do keep the documents for I think a year. But it's funny that people are so worried about getting that deal, because that's the problem. Is everybody wants to make money, right? And everybody wants to do deals, but they don't see the risk and they don't listen when you tell them the risk. Can't tell you how many clients I've had argue with me because the borrower is pushing them. I'm like, wait a minute, like, you're the one giving them $100,000. Like, you should be like, hey, wait a minute, let me listen to the guy who's telling me slow down, something doesn't look right, not the guy who wants your money. Because honestly, if I want your money and I can pressure you into giving it to me, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Like, we are okay if the borrower is like upset because they're like, I need the money now. And we're like, okay, well, we still need to do our portion. It's going to take, what it needs to take to get it done. And sometimes it's hard for people to understand, but we go back to our client, who's usually the lender, and we explain to them the importance of, taking our time and doing what we need to do. I've had people where, before they even bring the deal to us, I'm like, listen, go talk to Melissa Palmer and have her do the background check and have her do everything. Because because sometimes you have people that have the funds, right? They're the lender, but they have no real estate experience. So they don't know how to underwrite. They're just taking the borrower's word for it. So guys, do not take anyone's word for it. Do your own due diligence. Run your own numbers and see if you come up with the same thing. And always, get Melissa Palmer to assist you with doing a further investigation. Don't go based off like, well, they're well known in the community. They're doing a ton of deals. So what? Jay and I worked on this big project. It was called the Project 100, where someone locked up a whole bunch of deals way too fast. None of the lenders were protected. Okay. So no proper information was given to the lenders. Every single person I spoke to that lost money in this deal, which was about 60 or 70 lenders and like over 100 properties, same borrower. They were like, we weren't given enough information. We have no idea what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to ask. The paperwork was not correct. So if you want that to be you, then keep doing what you're doing. Just keep rushing and think that you're going to get fast money. But that's not the case, right? Things happen. And I want Melissa to talk about an instance where she had done a due diligence and she found out very quickly that it wasn't what it was made out to be.
Yeah. So I've got two examples I'd like to share. One's a little extreme and one's totally benign, and they're perfect because everyone wants to go to the extreme example, but so many things are benign. So I had some investors they had already lended some funds to some folks that were raising funds for a non-real estate backed asset, but that it was asset backed. And they couldn't really tell me the details. They weren't certain. And that's why they wanted to hire me. They're like, hey, dig into this, look at the deal of the person, verify the information, right? What I say I do. And so I ask that people do this with a conversation that allows the borrower to know that this is being done so that they're cooperative, because it's already hard enough to verify information when people are being cooperative, but now we're just eliminating a lot of information if they don't want to talk to me. And then that's what I call the free shit screen. If somebody doesn't want to do due diligence, why are you giving them your money? Anyway, so that could have been the free stopping point, but they wanted to carry on because there were really good returns. And so I conducted the due diligence. It was pulling teeth. They wouldn't even give me their like a driver's license is all I need. Nothing super secret about that. So then I had to do exploratory searches to find like, okay, I know he lives here. I know he's about this age. It was just like, I had to do a mini investigation to even do the background checks on this guy, but I still was able to do them. And his attorney, because his attorney was like this volatile wildcat. It's just like, okay, that's very unprofessional. You guys are interesting characters, not people I would invest with, but not my money. So went through, looked at the deal, which was a nothing burger, as I like to call it. It was asset-backed returns, guaranteed guarantees, and assets, and nothing was defined. I gave them a list of questions because they wouldn't talk to me. And in the response in the email was just flipping the script of asking who I was. They had 30 years of experience. I wouldn't understand. And I'm like, you're right. I wouldn't understand because you didn't answer any of my questions. It's very simple. So like, help me understand by answering my questions, and then maybe we can get there. Anyway, enough back and forth where I had no idea what the actual assets were, but they did have a structure that was wiring it directly to the attorney in his El Paso front company. Like I investigated front companies as a profession for a while, and my goodness, his matches a lot of them. And to be a licensed attorney with an El Paso on the border, vacant office with no employees, and I can name the red flags forever, but they provided no information. I produced the report, which was a black hole of information. Basically, like we don't know his background, we don't know his. I found like a personal primary property and a couple other things for his assets, but that has nothing to do with what he's offering in this deal. And this offering also has the contract was completely unenforceable. It had no default considerations, no specification of these assets, of course, but they were offshore, which is information that they told the investors and the lenders. And so I'm like, okay, you got this offshore company. You have no idea what country these funds are in. Do you understand that you need to understand the host country laws in order for you to even determine what your default considerations are if they don't? So, basically I produced this massive report. I think the contract alone had like 18 lines where I highlighted and commented on why this contract was, one, not in their favor, two, very nefarious, and three, just a nothing burger, like and intentionally misleading with all the guarantees and the assets. So that one was an example. $250,000. I have not heard back from those clients, but because I get default reports, I got reports of massive defaults from these people now. So I did this investigation in September. Now it's coming to term. All of these loans, they're defaulting on left and right. It got to the point where this guy started offering his personal property. I mean, he was offering like gold and runways in foreign countries and just really wild stuff.
Wow.
Unicorn farts is like what I was joking. I mean, I don't know what this guy was offering. And the fact that he had an attorney makes some people feel good. And you just have to remember, one, everyone you meet in church is not a saint. Like, everyone you meet in your real estate mentorship is not an investor. Some of them are criminals. Some of them are serial failures in life. They cannot hold a job. And so this is what they've turned to. There are some amazing people as well, but I lead with that because so many people enter this with this warm fuzzy of family and other entrepreneurs. And it's like, nah, dude, he's not an entrepreneur. He just can't hold a job. So that's how he pretends to make money, and then he rips you off while he's pretending to. So yeah, that's one example, and that one's obviously pretty severe, and I hope those clients are all right. I've checked in with them a couple times. I haven't heard back, but they already lended money to him, and so that was the gateway drug. And I urged them as part of my report. I have report and recommendations. The recommendation isn't invest or don't invest. It is, if you invest, I would change the contract to address these items. I would answer these questions that they did not answer for me. And I would verify, these 5 things, right? And part of there, sometimes I'll have a structural recommendation. If there's a massive fix and flip, obviously let's do draws. Don't fund it all at once, right? Include inspections, some performance clauses, blah, 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 blah. Well, for this one, I did recommend wait to see if you get your money back on this other loan. Wait, you have no rush. You're not in a rush. Everybody's in a rush. Yeah. So there's this urgency, and it's false. It's a false sense of urgency. Anyway, that was one of my recommendations, one of my many recommendations in that report. And but even that, I told them, I was like, look, because there's no understanding of what this deal structure is, or how the money's being made, or what the asset is, or how you're secure, and the connector and the attorney both indicated they've already taken a ton of funds, and that other investors are on board, and that I was the problem, right? I'm the turd in the punch bowl. And I'm like, nah, man, like, you guys are so clearly Ponzi scheme artists. So that was the other thing. I was like, 1, wait till you get your money back. But 2, even if you get your money back, it doesn't mean they're not just robbing Peter to pay Paul, because I see no legitimate deal here. Anyway, that's one example. There's a second example that's kind of feel good. And so I had another lender who wanted an investor verified. And so we went through the full due diligence process, and she was extremely cooperative, very straightforward, provided all of her, background, education, and experience. She was a new realtor. She had already done a bunch of fix and flips, and they had a really good source of primary income, personal income, and so there were a lot of things going for it. Where I treat this process as consultative on both ends, because I'm not here trying to get borrowers screwed either. And so when I was working with her, I realized you're doing a luxury flip. You've only done regular, lower end flips before, and you're a brand new realtor, and your plan is to list this yourself. So my recommendation to her, because again, and most of the time the borrowers are paying for this, so I want to make sure this is a service to them as well. I was like, my recommendation to you is, in your offering, make sure that you are hunting down the luxury brokers that are crushing it in this market. Look in your neighborhood, look at the last 5 sales, do all these things, right? And partner up with them, do a co-listing, because if you think you're going to crush your first luxury listing, you're probably wrong, right? So that was one of the, things I work with all parties, right? Obviously, if somebody's hiring me, my fiduciary responsibility is to them, but I do want to help. And I'm not doing this to be a barrier. I just want people to be safe and smart and pragmatic about these approaches, right? And so you got this really short timeline here. One, I would ask for more time because they're going to crunch you, and they should crunch you like if you go over. So maybe rethink your deal, because days on market for luxury flips are significantly different than days on market for your accessible housing. And so anyway, as we were going through hers, at the very end, some things came up where there were some massive tax liens. Like I'm talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Wow. And it was a great deal. It was a great property. She was so cooperative and receptive. And so I do a statement of explanation. I do a follow-up. When I find things, we don't just go, okay, got a bunch of liens, deal with that. Make your decision, Jennifer. No, context matters, right? And so I follow up, ask the questions. She provides an extremely, forthright, immediately transparent. Yes, I was in a very bad business partnership. I got, stuck with the bill. There were a bunch of sales and income made. That person took all the profit and I got stuck with all the taxes. And so she was able to provide proof of payments. She had a structured agreement with the state. She had all of her receipts for the payments that were made. So it was fantastic, because it was a perfect example of how you don't have to be denied based on findings, right? You can have crimes in your background. You can have tax liens. You can have these things. Context matters. You can have shit credit. So context matters. Like, why is it bad? Oh, well, you just took out 4 DSCRs in 1 year and your DTI is really bad and you've got a whole bunch of new loans and you've got a bunch of inquiries, right? That makes sense. Now, an entire history of derogatory reporting because you can't pay your credit card bills, you should probably be denied a loan. So in that case, credit does matter. And so it's just or in the case of this same thing, fantastic property, fantastic person, not paying your taxes, you got hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax liens and not a single receipt to show otherwise, right? Maybe that's denial, probably. Even though the asset's really good, who's to say the state doesn't come and try to take that profit? And so this is an example of like very simple things at face value. They could have lended on that completely different. They did restructure the loan based on some of her experience, some of her planning, some of her timelines, because they were very short-term lenders. And based on my recommendation to her, I was like, you're going to go over. I mean, it'd be amazing if you hit a home run your first time on the field. But if we're pragmatic about this, let's give yourself some more time. Well, when she had to restructure the deal, it restructured the terms. She had to come up with a little more money, but everybody was safer. And it's better to come up with more money at the front end instead of being hounded and destroyed, sometimes rightfully so, by lenders on the back end. So I like to treat this process as consultative for both ends.
Right. And that's amazing because like things happen, like you said, maybe you had a tough part of your life, a rough patch, but when you start hiding things, it makes it very suspicious, right? Just be completely transparent. Say, yeah, this is what happened. Okay, now I understand. Thank you for providing that. Let's move forward, right?
And this shows me that you're capable of overcoming really difficult stuff. I think that's great.
Yep.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what we do. We tell our clients that we work for the asset regardless of who pays our fee. So if you're the buyer and you're bringing us in, then we work for the seller because we got to make sure they're protected, their property is protected. because you're and definitely can hurt their credit for the rest of their life. Like you can cause a lot of problems. On a lending situation, borrower, lender, we work for the lender. Doesn't matter. The borrower ends up paying our fee. Like kind of like you, right? The borrower pays the fee. We work for the lender. The object is to protect the lender's money at anything. And it's funny because I've had that, I don't want to say argument, disagreement with some clients, some borrowers who are like, wait a minute, I paid your fee. I'm like, great, you really did, for me to make sure that you could get the money and it's protected. And then I like what you said about they had already lent money and now they're coming to you to do that. I actually had this happen recently where a lady came to me and goes, hey, I'm doing a deal. I've lent to these people before, but something doesn't feel right. There was a TC on it, a top tier TC. On the deal, on the borrower side, I read through the JV agreement. It's not written the way I would have wrote it, but it's fine. It's a fine write. It's just not the way I write it, right? Because we write a little different. But one thing that was in there was would provide cross collateral on 3 properties. So all I did, I'm kind of like you, I made a recommendation. I said, hey, we need you to memorialize what that means. You're going to provide a note. You're going to provide a deed of trust. You're going to provide all these things on each property. They canceled the borrower, or the lender. They didn't want to work with her. They said that these new requested changes cause more time and more money for the lawyers. And so I simply asked, how is it more time and money when you said you were going to cross collateralize it? All I asked you to do was memorialize what documents that was. So I was like, how do you cross collateralize if you don't provide documents, right? You
no
can't.
Oral agreements.
Yeah. And I'm like, cross collateral is just, okay, cross collateral. Awesome. What does that mean? Like, I know what it means in the terms of what we know.
Bike? Is it a car? Is it your cat? Like, what is that?
They listed the property, but they didn't list what they were going to provide to do this. And so they didn't list the security mechanisms. And so when I asked for them, it made it cost too much, which made no sense to me. Luckily, my lender agreed with me. In fact, I'm doing a deal for her right now with something completely different, but she's worried about the other deals she's done with it. And so it's like, I read her paperwork. She sent it to me and I was like, well, the paperwork's there. And luckily it wasn't, she got notes and deeds of trust. So from that perspective, she's got documents, but I wasn't on those deals. But it's just funny how many people think they can just write in a JV agreement, oh, you're secured against this property, and that's it. And they'll go note and they'll go JV agreement. I'm like, you don't have a security mechanism with a note. It's just a piece of paper.
Sticky note.
Well, and some of these people are entitled to your money because they've already gotten it and we already have a relationship. So now you're hurting my feelings that you actually want to memorialize this. And I'm like, no, you can be sloppy in the beginning, but once you know better, do better.
Right.
So if it costs you more because you realize you were writing checks your ass can't cash, like now cash them. Like you said you'd do this, do it. Don't get butthurt about it because it's like, you do what you say and, do good and you'll do well. And that's why you have to take care of the seller. You have to take care of the borrower. You have to take care of the lender. You have to take care of all parties because, if anybody's getting screwed, it's not a deal, right? And that's not good money. And I mean, some people are just in it for the transaction, right? It's like, but at the end of the day, I don't think you build a good reputation or a good business if you're operating that way.
Well, that's like with me. Like I have my best friend. We've been best friends for 28 years. He has keys to my house. I have keys to his house. He come and go however we want. We're doing business together. And he's like, I'll just give you my bank account logins for you to wire money out. And I'm like, no. We wrote a JV agreement. I opened a bank account. We both put funds in there so we can both fund deals. And he didn't understand it. He's like, dude, I trust you with my life. I was like, it's not about that. The business is different. So when you're doing the deal, I don't care if you've done one deal or 100 deals. Every deal is a new business. It's a new business venture because you might pay me back on the first 2, but the third one's not good. And that's what I see. Like you said, the people who will borrow. And it's really weird. Like borrowers can be funny. I'm not gonna say all of them, right? Because I'm a borrower, but they can be funny. First 2 deals are small, they're good. They repay you, everything's good. Then they have a big deal, and that one goes bad. And it's really interesting because I know everybody's like HUDs or duds and things like that. I'm like, look, HUDs don't matter. If I do 100 deals and you say give me 3 HUDs, 5 HUDs, am I going to give you my 5 best HUDs? Absolutely.
Right.
You the one I get the best deal on. Yeah. Yep. I can lose the other 95. 95 of them I could have lost money, but those 5 I made money. So HUDs are kind of to me, HUDs just show you've done it. They don't show your full track record.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like,
and so
P&L, man. And then if you don't have one, it's like, oh, maybe go clean up your books.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take that tip of the day, Melissa. What was it? You know better, do better.
Yeah.
You said it. That's gonna be like the tip of the day, and I think the tip for this video altogether. Yep. Just because you did your first PML deal and it wasn't the greatest, you weren't really protected, or you as the borrower, you didn't provide all the information you should have, doesn't mean that you should continue to do business that way. So moving forward, do better. I hope that this video provided value to someone out there, whether it's a borrower, a lender, or someone that's thinking about being either or. So Melissa, if someone wants to reach out to you and they want to, get your services, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah. So cardinal-creative.com or capitalverified.com is where I have my services listed. You can book a call with me straight from there. If somebody just wants a half hour and they don't want to do the full 2-week due diligence service, I urge you to do that. Don't let the 2 weeks stop you. Get on my calendar. Because I hate getting those messages after that are like, I really wanted to do this, but we had to close it quick. And it's like, oh, yeah, I can consult with you right now, but I already don't like what's coming. Yeah, you already closed? Cool. Let's see if we can get them to do the paperwork that they didn't do.
Let me know how that goes, and we can add him to the blacklist too.
Yes, please follow up with me later. He'll be on the blacklist. So yeah, but come get to my website. You can book a call straight from there with me, or if you do want to engage in due diligence services, I've got that. And then the investor passport is what originally I designed it for borrowers, but a lot of lenders have wanted it too. But it is a third-party verification of background, education, and experience, assets, income, and credit. We do a mission, vision, values workshop, and like a buy box workshop. So we can really, or a lend box. So we can really figure out what your goals are and make sure that you're projecting, like if you're, invest anywhere if the numbers work, like that is a clear indication that you have no idea what you want to do with your life or your business. So let's work on that. And that's what I do in the investor passport.
I love it.
I have a question about your passport because we've talked about this. It's a point in time, right? So do you do like a recertification? Like, so I have a concealed carry. I've recertified every 4 years that I'm not a lunatic or been arrested. Do you do that too? Do you do a recertification? Is that part of the package deal?
Yeah. So right now, I'm just loving on all my early adopters. So anytime they get a new property, I put it on there. Anytime. Now that is not part of the service, right? But in time, I will offer like annual updates for a small service fee. But right now, you get a passport. I'm loving on everybody because as long as I can maintain it, I just want to make sure that it's valuable to my clients. So. But yeah, a recertification and a new stamp in time. So there is a stamp in time on the very top of the passport. And I can refresh that if we pull some more records and do another.
So how many passports have you issued? I'm just curious.
I want to say there's like 14 now. And then I've got 2 clients that are doing a one-on-one, like 6-month consulting program with me. And so we're doing passports for them as well. And so, that is where we are developing their own due diligence program so that they don't have to come to me for $2,400 every single time they've got a deal. They are getting 6 months with me that we're doing it. And then also developing their program so that they've got their own marching orders to do DIY or outsource it within their team. And so anyway, yeah, I want to say it's like 14 passports now. It's not a whole lot. And I was kind of offering, I need to do better about this. Pace was telling me the other day, he's like, luxury cars don't offer discounts. And so in the beginning, I was doing like at cost services just so I could hook people up. But so yeah.
No ma'am, no ham. What I tell people all the time, you don't go to Louis Vuitton and you try to negotiate their price. You don't say, that's a really nice purse, but can I pay like $50? Would you take that? No.
So yeah.
Value. So You stick to your price.
Yeah, and the borrowers that have done passports have gotten immediate funding. So I'm not promising immediate funding, but the lenders like it because they can see what you're about. And so I'm like, it pays for itself. Come, be transparent, be open, be curious. Let's identify a real targeted investment strategy for you, and you'll get some money out of it. That's the crazy part. It pays for itself.
Awesome. Well, Melissa, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to, tell us about due diligence and what the value that you bring to the community. I think that goes hand in hand with what we do on a daily basis for our clients. And we definitely want to get the word out more that due diligence is not a question if I should do it. It should be done each and every time. So thank you again so much for coming on here and, telling everyone about what you do.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Melissa. We'll talk soon.